What's going on, guys? NealGuides here. Welcome back to episode 6 of FIFA School. In today's video we're going to be talking about dynamic tactics and how to set up your team. And what this video is for people that are in Division 1 and not for players in Division 1 and 2, because you probably know this already, but this is for Division 2 and below. And what this is how to set up your team. Even if you only play one formation, you always want different variations of that formation. I'll explain to you how in the video and a way I set it up and with a way I recommend to set it up. And then later on we'll be talking about some other stuff for those that want to stay on and watch the video, where I give a bit more detail and a bit more insight on the tips and tricks I'd recommend. So the first thing you want to do is you want to choose a formation, any formation you want. I'm going to use 4-2-3-1 because it is the meta this year as an example. So just to give an example, this is the team that I use. This is just a random team, one of my random squads. But I don't actually use the 4-3-3. As you can see, it says 4-3-3. Bear in mind, this is not the actual team formation. This is just to get the chemistry. As you can see, for example, I need, Goretzka to have 1 year link, so he gets 8 chem, and same with Dembele. That's the reason why I play in this formation, so everyone gets the maximum chem as possible. Now, what I changed to in game is a different story. I changed to the 4-2-3-1. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is balance. Now, when it comes to balance, kickoff glitch is ever so prominent. Now, if you don't play home games, you're going to be susceptible to not kicking off first. And with the kickoff glitch, what I find is you don't want your players to be high up the pitch. So my balance tactic, which I change after the first minute, but let's say, for example, you're playing an away game and you're kicking off against your opposition's team, you don't want to be on a back foot, especially against the kickoff glitch. So what I do normally is I play drop back, 3 depth and 3 width, and a balance, and all my kind of width and plays in the box on 2. Now the way this is, as soon as the game starts, I immediately change to either one of, mainly my defensive formation is what I change to. But that split second where your players are going to be kind of susceptible to kick off, you want to be further back as you can in your half. You don't want to play a high line at kickoff, because we know how kickoff is with the kind of, you could say, the kickoff issue. We know kickoff glitch exists. A simple ball in behind can basically kill you. That's why you want low depth. And I would say just try to have drop back on as well. I highly recommend. You can do the offside trap, but that will be another video which I'll talk about how to defend against kickoff glitch. But that's why it's for balance. Then I changed to 3 formations. Now, probably you only use one formation. To be honest, I'm the same. I'm quite lazy. When I was streaming, I don't really try hard, so it's a bit different. So you don't really see me use this too much. The first people would think, well, Neil, you don't do this yourself. If I go try hard mode, I kind of do this. But since I'm playing casually when I'm streaming, I don't really go into nitty gritty. But you want to have 3 different formations. I normally have, for example, so my ultra defensive formation is kind of the formation which I use to close the game out. So if, for example, I'm in 70-80 minutes and I know that I don't need to get another goal, I'm ahead 2-0, I change this formation which is a bit more defensive. My players come back on defense. I then have a balanced formation. Now this is why, even though it says defensive, ignore defensive. This is what is, for me, is my balance formation. This is the formation that you use in the game from minute 1. So as soon as the game starts, this is kind of like you're not too attacking, not too defensive. It's kind of in the middle. Then I have an attacking formation, which is a bit more attacking than my defensive. So what I mean by that is, for example, here I play pressure and heavy touch. In comparison to my defensive, I got a higher width and I have a different offensive style on long ball. And also, for example, I have, one of my fullbacks on join attack. This is just an attacking variation of your defensive formation. Then I have an ultra attacking formation. This is if, for example, you're trailing in the 80th minute and you need to get a goal back, you change to this formation. So this formation is kind of the do or die. This is when you need a goal no matter what. This if you're 2-0 down and you want one more chance in the game, and you want to commit as many players forward as you can, assuming that you're not doing that already using the quick tactics. So for example, I have, constant pressure, fast build-up play. Basically everything's practically on maximum. High width, creating more space, high depth, high up the pitch, and as much players as I can in a box. So that's what I'd recommend. Have even if you only use one formation, maybe just have, for example, one ultra, just to keep it basic, have one ultra defensive, where you have, even if you, for example, let's say all of these were balanced, right? And all of these were drop back. Let's just say all of these were drop back. even if you had them all exactly the same, you can maybe have your ultra defensive to maybe have lower depth, and your defensive to have medium depth, and your attacking to have even higher depth, if that makes sense. So you can adjust it at your will is what I would recommend. So the way I do it is I have my defensive formation. I normally put this on drop back when I go try hard. I lower the width, obviously, because you want to kind of defend the middle. You don't want your team to be spread out. Obviously lower depth. You kind of want to be a bit more parked into your half, should I say? Even though I don't really play that way. But if I was up against a very good player or a pro player, don't get me wrong, you kind of have no choice but to play a lower depth. I think now possession is what I like to use when I'm on kind of to close the game out, because when I use this formation only, for example, in the final 10 minutes where I know my opponent's going to be a bit more attacking. So when I am holding the ball, I kind of want players coming short to give me passing options. I don't want long ball. I don't want players committing forward. That's pointless because I'm trying to lock the game out. So I leave this on possession. You can use balanced. Of course, you still want to maintain an offensive width. So you obviously, when you're attacking, you still want to be quite wide apart so you can make passes. So you can essentially time manage, do 1-2s, pass around your opponent. Obviously, I don't want players in the box because I'm defending the game, closing the game out. And corners and free kicks, you could probably even turn these to 1 if you really wanted to. But anyway, that's the ultra defensive. And for example, apart from my strike, I have all my cams, all my CDMs on comeback on offense. Because naturally, if you're up against an opponent, he's probably going to commit more players forward, or he's going to change to attacking formation. So you want this formation which is a bit more defensive. More players will come back. That way you don't get outnumbered in your defense, if that makes sense, while your opponent's attacking. Then the 4-2-1 is my default tactic. This is what I use the entire game. You've seen my 4-2-3-1 video. It's very similar. I have my cam, my strike on stay forward, CDMs on stay back, and my left attacking mid, right attacking mid on balanced, and my fullbacks on step back. This is kind of what I play the entire game. So if you're going to use one formation, just make this your normal formation. Naturally, your normal formation. This is if as soon as the game starts, as I said, minute 1, you change to this formation. This formation you want to play with normally. And then if you are struggling with your normal formation, let's say, for example, your opponent's parking the bus, or for example, he's playing a specific style, I normally have a bit more attacking variations. It's basically exactly the same, however, it's a bit more attacking. So I have long ball, a bit more players in the box to create more chances, higher width to create more space when I'm attacking. I like to increase the depth a bit, just so I'm a bit more higher up, if that makes sense. I do change the pressure on heavy touch, especially when I'm streaming as well, because in that way, because as you guys know, I manually press, but sometimes when you're reading the chat, it's a bit difficult. So if you are playing attacking, which is going to be a bit, you might want to change this. You might want to leave this unbalanced, or however you play. I would recommend pressure and heavy touch though. It's good to win the ball back. This could also be a formation to use if you're 1-0 down. You don't want to be on your kind of defensive formation. This can assume like maybe this is the formation you use when you're winning. This formation you use when it's 0-0. This is when you're 1-0 down. This is when you're like 2-0 down. That's the way you can kind of look at it. Then I have an attacking formation, as I said, and the instructions, it's a bit different. Stay forward for as my same players, but the differences I have is all 3 of my cams are all on get into the box. You see that all in get into the box in comparison to my defensive, which was basically only one of them was on stay forward, and they were all on balance. So I kind of want more players in the box. I also have just one of my fullbacks on join the attack. That way I can outnumber my opponent when I am attacking. This is normally if I'm a goal down, I change this formation. Then it's a do or die. This is the kind of formation you want to use, as I said. This is kind of all out attack. This is the formation where you need one more chance, and you need to get a goal back, and it's 80 minutes, and the opposition's parking the bus, and he's changed the defensive formation. It's the formation you're going to use to kind of break down to create that final chance. I use a 3-4-3, quite wide formation. Outnumber your opponent in your box, makes it very hard for your opponent to mark this, because if they're playing, for example, a 5 defender formation, you're basically outnumbering them in some respects. So obviously, as you know, I normally leave this on balance, but of course, you can put these on stay forward if you want. Sometimes I change this formation if I feel the game is completely against me, but very rare does that happen. And that's what I'd recommend set up a team. Now that's kind of the base video done. But what I would want to say is, if, for example, you only play one, if you play different formations, have, for example, if you're ultra defensive formation, if when you there's no listen, the truth is everyone parks the bus. Just because you and I play a certain way doesn't mean you should not park the bus because you don't want to win. The win is the most important thing at the end of the day, regardless. Doesn't matter. So if you want to park the bus, then use 5-3-2. Do you know what I mean? If you think that the 4-2-3-1 is a bit too defensive for your attacking formation, change to the 4-2-2-2. So that way, for example, you compare the 4-2-3-1 and a 4-2-2-2. The difference is one of the cams now becomes a striker, if that makes sense, as you can see in a 4-2-2-2. So you can change it to however you want. As you can see now, there's two strikers, so that the cam kind of turns into striker. So as I'm trying to say is, set these up to the tactics that you use. And even if, let's say for example, now this is one thing that a lot of players do. Let's say you're a complete novice at tactics and you think this is a big step and you don't want to kind of have too many different variations because you want to keep a consistent game style. That's completely fine. A lot of people like to be consistent. I myself included. I like to sometimes be a bit more consistent, so I don't like to change my tactics too much. What you can do is you can play basically everything on the same settings for all. So for example, you can put them all on drop back long. So this is just an example, right? So you can put them all on drop back and long ball, and maybe you can have different depths. So the 4-2-3-1, for example, you can have 4 depth, and maybe the more attacking one is, for example, more wider. Let's say you want to be a bit more wide or a bit more narrow on attack because you want to be close together. You can change this. So that way, if, for example, in a game you find that, for example, your opponent's playing quite a wide formation, you want to exploit the inside and want to be a bit narrow, then you can change the formation with the lower width. Do you see the point I'm trying to say? This gives you more options. And the key why I'm showing this video is, the truth is, this is not just me. People that I speak to, people that I play with, they only use one formation. And the problem is, I think sometimes that the good thing with dynamic tactics is in previous FIFAs you had to pause the game and make changes yourself, and now you can just press your D-pad and flick between ultra attacking and defensive. So let's say for example you feel like you're being a bit too attacking in a game, and maybe for example you don't need to go as attacking, you might just want to change to ultra defensive for 5 minutes, and then maybe for example you find that it's too defensive, you can change back to attacking. Another key thing to do is also have different formations. So for example, 4-2-3-1 is naturally very same as the 4-2-3-1 second variation, except for the 4-2-3-1 second variation, basically the cams kind of drop to left mids. I would say it's a bit more of a defensive formation in my opinion. But for example, you can, for example, use the 4-2-3-1 second variation, and let's say for example you want one formation which is very wide. So let's say you want to have a high width on one formation, as I said previously, you can do the same thing. So on the fly, if for example you want a narrow, so let's say these are exactly the same, one's narrow, one's attacking. So let's say for example every 10 minutes of the game you want to go from playing narrow to playing wide, just to kind of trick your opponent, you can do that. I would say to be honest, dynamic tactics are completely underused this FIFA. The truth is, obviously because of the formation glitch and the position glitches now, people try to be consistent, and I think you can be consistent, but I think always try to have an option. I would say at the bare minimum, at least have a defensive formation, so maybe to lock the game out, a kind of a balanced formation that you use all the time, and an attacking formation. That way you can just change on the fly in the game. Sometimes you might find yourself a bit too attacking, you can just change to your defensive formation, and vice versa. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't want to make it too long. Thank you very much for watching. Episode 7 I'll be talking about chemistry styles, so stay tuned for that. Anyway boys, catch you in the next one.